One of my favorite genres in gaming has to be Metroidvanias, and of course we're all patiently waiting for Hollow Knight Silksong to come out. It's been a long wait for it, but during the waiting period, we've had a lot of great Metroidvania games released in 2024 alone. Great games like Mini Shoot Adventures, Animal Well, Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus, Nine Souls, which between you and me, I haven't played it yet, but it has great reviews, so I'm gonna get around to it hopefully by the end of this year. Gestalt, Steam and Cinder, and of course Crypt Custodian, one of my favorite releases of the year. While all the aforementioned games shine in their own regard, I feel like there's one Metroidvania that kind of slipped by a lot of people, and it's Biogun. Biogun was mostly made by a two-person team with Dapper Dog Digital and was their first major project, and looking at it, it's really something. The story of Biogun is quite interesting. You play as a vaccine named Beck, who is also a pig, and you're injected into a dog to stop the duper virus from spreading, and you're helping save dog kind. The entire game is based inside the dog, and a lot of enemies and NPCs will have names based around what they are and their location in the dog. The story is simple, and Biogun shines in a lot of areas, and we'll discuss it all. But the first thing I want to talk about, in my opinion, is the strongest part of this game, and it's the upgrades and collectibles that are available to you, and how they really help keep the game feeling fresh with whatever your preferred playstyle is. First, let's talk about the collectibles that don't affect combat. We all know every Metroidvania has cute collectibles to get. Crypt Custodian has spirit cats, Gestalt Steam and Cinder has corgis, Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus has kodamas, and Biogun has cute puppies that you can save. They're scattered all across the map, and personally, I didn't find them hard to get. Some will require using some skills with platforming, but nothing is too complicated. There's 24 total you need to save, and rewards for them are the main currency globs, fused atoms, and some other things. They're probably the easiest item to fully collect of the many things to worry about. And there's only one other item that doesn't affect gameplay with collectibles, and they're just simple cosmetics. They're also scattered across the map, but can be kind of easy to miss if you don't care about cosmetics. I personally love seeing how Beck looked with all of them, and a lot of them paid homage to other great games like Metroid or Metal Gear Solid. But there are a few collectibles to talk about that affect the combat. One of the most important ones are fused atoms. Every 3 fused atoms you find can upgrade your health or energy. The energy being upgraded allows you to shoot more secondary shots or heal, and you gain it back by just shooting enemies. I love the way these atoms were set up, and the effect of the energy was really well done to me. There's not really much to talk about with the fused atoms. They give you health or they give you energy. But we can talk about the other 2 collectibles that really affect the combat, and it's the gun mods and the gun chips. You can buy a lot of gun chips with globs, but you still find a good amount. They just buff your guns slightly with more overdrive or a little shield to protect you. The more interesting thing that helps keep the game more fresh though is the gun mods. Every gun mod has different damage, fire rate, range, velocity, and even how much energy it gives you back. I love swapping these around all game and experimenting which one was my favorite. I personally love the sniper rifle for its damage and range, but the fire rate was always a struggle for me compared to the basic machine gun that didn't give as much energy or damage, but a faster fire rate, which I lean towards. Of course, we could also quickly discuss the upgrades you get that help make this a Metroidvania. As we know, Metroidvanias give you upgrades and new powers so you can re-explore a lot of the map and backtrack to get items. I love that. Most games in this genre I get addicted to. Biogun does this well to give you mandatory upgrades to progress, but does a good job at hiding some useful abilities within side quest. From main bosses, you can get 4 secondary guns that use energy to fire, and these guns unlock a lot of extra rooms for you to find and act as the main upgrades. You do have other larger upgrades with dashes and a double jump and a jetpack, but the guns do feel more important with exploration. I loved finding all these upgrades and going back to explore what I missed. Biogun easily allows for backtracking with collecting if you have synapses, which you can buy from the store or just find them. If you place 3 synapses in a tree like this, it'll showcase the entire map of the area, even if you haven't seen it, the NPCs and bosses in the area, and finally, the most important part, a question mark to showcase where all the items are, allowing for an easy backtracking. I love that. If a Metroidvania game allows you to easily gain access to all the item locations by doing some crazy task or doing some crazy collecting, it'll always get a few brownie points for me. Granted, I don't want it too early into the game. Maybe like 75% of the way through the story, it would be nice to go backtrack everything. But it's just beautifully done in Biogun. Overall, Biogun excels with collectibles, upgrades, and ease of finding said collectibles. The traveling as a whole isn't the easiest, as most of the game you only have a set number of fast travel locations to extract from, but I'll say that doesn't negatively influence the game with how easy the movement is. But to complement the great collectibles, does the combat stack up with it? I'll say it does. Every biome houses unique enemies and loads of bosses you can fight. This small game does have 30 bosses total, which is an impressive feat, and they are definitely the most challenging part of the game. But none of the bosses gave me an insane challenge, nor did the common enemies. Sure, I'd get hit a few times here and there and possibly die, but with how convenient it is to heal with energy, I found myself not dying that often. The most exciting thing with combat can lead back to collectibles with all the gun mods and gun chips. You have a lot of different options with whatever type of gun you want to use, burst weapons, snipers, regular machine guns, and then loads of chips to complement them. If you really want to challenge yourself, they do have a gun chip that doubles your damage, but kills you if you get hit once. That would make the game incredibly hard because every boss did hit me at some point. But if you're an achievement hunter, you will be doing this because look at these achievements. Beating every boss with that gun chip genuinely sounds like a fun challenge. Combat as a whole was better than average. The boss fights were all incredibly well done and had fun movesets to learn and evade, and while walking around the world from one location to the next, I found myself not really dodging enemies because they weren't too tedious to kill. The combat and bosses complement the game more and help add a lot of playtime in the best way possible. But not many games in this world are perfect. Listen, we can't all be Darkest Dungeon levels of great. Biogun has its problems that negatively affect the game. I would not be doing my job as a guy that makes videos on the internet about random video games if I told you this game was perfect, because it's not, and that's fine. The biggest negative I had with the game was how it ran for me. I had a lot of stuttering, entering, and exiting new rooms after the game had been open for a few hours. Restarting the game would typically fix it, but restarting the game every couple hours is not ideal. The negative is not entirely the devs' fault either. When this game starts up, you see it was made in Construct 3, and those games are made to be played in a browser. Well, according to the website they are. So the fact that this giant Metroidvania runs as well as it does, minus a few stutters, is pretty incredible. The stutters are still a negative, but I feel based on that reason alone, it's somewhat justified with the engine that it's running in. That's the biggest issue I had with the game really, but there's still a couple more things to talk about quickly. This one is minor, but still an annoyance, and it's the UI being incredibly buggy at times. Missions sometimes wouldn't load properly, and very rarely things would get stuck on the screen, like the cosmetic page or the special gun selection. It was rare and only happened a couple times, so I might not have footage of it, but trust me, it happened. I imagine it's not the hardest fix in the world. And then my last little critique with this game is the balancing on a couple weapons. I love the variety Biogun has, but the sniper rifles were clearly the most powerful gun and melted tons of bosses compared to any other weapon. Small buffs or maybe a nerf can help easily balance it out, but it's a single player game, so who really cares that much? It was still fun. In the end, Biogun is a fast-paced, gun-filled Metroidvania that I feel has slipped by a lot of people. It's not perfect, nor is it the best indie I've ever played, but genuinely it was one of the best Metroidvanias I've played this year, and I really feel a lot of people will like it. You can easily get 12 to 15 hours in a playthrough, and the game offers a lot of items to collect if that's your style of gaming like it is mine. I really enjoyed this game, and I even enjoyed interviewing the developers of this game even more. Because if you don't know, I recently started a podcast where I interview indie game developers, so if you want to hear the story of the Biogun devs even more, you can do so in the description. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.